The night stretched long and silent. Only the sound of wind and steel echoed across the mountains. Under the dim violet sky, Ye Chuan stood alone on the grass. His body trembled, but his grip on the blade never wavered. Each swing tore through the air, cutting arcs of energy that lit up the darkness like falling stars. He grunted, muscles burning, sweat streaming down his face. The weight of the blade pressed down like a mountain, yet his spirit refused to break. The night faded into dawn. The cold wind brushed against his skin, carrying the scent of morning dew. Ye Chuan's chest rose and fell heavily, but his eyes still burned with determination. He dropped to his knees, gasping for air, but he didn't stop. Not yet. In his mind flashed fragments of memory, his father's calm smile, the smirk of the man who had humiliated them, and the promise he made to himself that night. His eyes snapped open. Fallen star! He swung the blade with all his strength. A bright streak of light burst forth, tearing through the ground like a meteor crashing from the heavens. The shock wave split the air, shaking the mountain around him. Dust and stones flew everywhere as Ye Chuan stood, panting, but smiling. Even though his hands bled and his body ached, the fire in his heart only grew stronger. A bright blue screen appeared before his eyes. Level up. You've reached 9th rank apprentice. Strength, 55. The spirit, 55. This monster, Ye Chuan's vision blurred. The numbers glowed brightly, then faded into darkness. His body collapsed onto the ground, completely drained. When he opened his eyes again, he was lying on a hospital bed. The soft sound of machines filled the quiet room. Outside, his mother sat anxiously beside the doctor. Her eyes were red from worry. "Doctor, is my son okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. The doctor smiled kindly. "He's fine. He just fainted from exhaustion. Looks like he was doing some intense exercise all night." The mother sighed in relief, but her face quickly darkened. Exercise? Ha, more like his father's crazy training again. She clenched her fists, anger flashing in her eyes. How could a father be so cruel, training his son until he passes out? "Just wait till I get home." The doctor adjusted her glasses and looked at the report seriously. "Judging by the amount of lactic acid in his body," she said, "it seems like he did 1,000 sit-ups, 1,000 push-ups, and 1,000 squats, all in one night." The mother's eyes widened. "What?" she shouted in disbelief. The doctor added calmly, "And he also ran about 100 kilometers. The mother slammed her hand on the table. "Doctor, are you joking with me? No human could do all of that in one night." The doctor smiled lightly, pushing up her glasses again. "A normal person couldn't," she said softly. "But your son, Ye Chuan, he's not exactly normal. Considering his mental focus and determination, it's possible." The mother's face turned red with fury. "That scoundrel of a husband," she yelled, standing so fast her chair nearly tipped. "I'm going home to teach him a lesson. I'll beat him so badly even his own mother won't recognize him." She stormed out of the room, the door slamming behind her with a loud bang. The doctor blinked, watched her leave, then smiled quietly to herself. "I didn't expect him to have such stamina," she whispered. A regular person would have died from that much training. Her eyes glimmered behind her glasses, and a small smirk formed on her lips. "Looks like I'll have to give him some one-on-one coaching tonight." The morning sun poured gently through the hospital window, but when the nurse walked in, the bed was empty. The blanket was still warm, but Ye Chuan was gone. She blinked in confusion. Where did he go? Outside, down a quiet street, Ye Chuan walked slowly under the golden light. His face was calm, but his body still ached from the training. He could feel the weight of what he had accomplished last night. That move, he thought to himself, took a lot of stamina. I shouldn't use it unless it's really necessary. He clenched his fists. The memory of the fallen star strike flashed in his mind. The shockwave, the power, the exhaustion. Even though he had passed out, he could still feel that strength burning deep inside his veins. A small smile appeared on his face. "Oh, right," he said quietly. "I can go to Master Tai Shin's place today. My knife should be ready by now." A soft purple light flashed across the sky. The air shimmered as if something powerful was awakening. Ye Chuan stopped in front of a tall, old building. The red sign above the door read, "Iron Heart Foundry." He looked up at it quietly, the glow from the forge lighting his face. "This is it," he murmured. Inside, sparks flew as molten metal hissed and burned. The air was hot, filled with the sound of a hammer striking steel. A large figure stood before the fire, his arms thick like iron, his face hidden beneath a rough beard. His eyes gleamed like hot coals behind the mask of smoke. The nameplate beside him read, "Master Tai Shin." He turned his head slightly, sensing someone at the door. The blacksmith grunted, his deep voice echoing through the forge. "Are you Ye Chuan?" Ye Chuan stepped forward, standing tall despite the heat. "I am." The forge burned brightly, sparks dancing in the air. Master Tai Shin crossed his thick arms and looked at Ye Chuan with sharp eyes. "Mr. Zhao has already told me everything," he said in a deep, rough voice. "I worked through the whole night to forge the knife you wanted." The flames glowed red behind him as he grinned, tusks flashing in the light. "But I heard," he said slowly, leaning forward, "you're just a pig butcher, aren't you?" Ye Chuan stayed silent, his calm eyes meeting the master's without fear. The blacksmith smirked. "Hey, I didn't expect the Xia family to pay me a fortune just to forge a blade for a pig butcher." He lifted a heavy wooden box onto the table. The lid opened with a soft click. Inside, resting on dark red cloth, was a short, curved knife. The metal shimmered faintly with a cold light, like moonlight trapped inside steel. "Are you their illegitimate son or something?" Tai Shin asked, his tone half joking, half serious. Yu Chuan's hand twitched slightly, but before he could touch the knife, the blacksmith growled, "Don't be so impatient, kid." He picked up the knife carefully, his red eyes glowing brighter in the firelight. "This knife," he said, "was forged from 1,000-year-old cold iron, a material that only appears after 49 days of refining." He smiled proudly, his voice echoing in the forge. "Its rank, yellow grade, high tier." The air trembled with his words. Then his expression turned serious. "A weapon like this recognizes its owner," he warned. "If your cultivation isn't high enough, forget using it. You won't even be able to lift it." Yi Chuan looked at the glowing blade. His face stayed calm, but his eyes burned with quiet determination. Slowly, he raised his hand. Golden light began to glow from his fingers, faint at first, then brighter. The air around him shifted, swirling with energy. The blacksmith's grin faded. For the first time, he looked surprised. The forge went silent. The flames flickered softly as Yi Chuan's fingers hovered above the knife, then clang. His hand closed around the handle. A bright flash of light burst out, flooding the entire room. The air trembled. The blacksmith's eyes widened. Yi Chuan stood still, his face calm, his grip steady. The blade shimmered faintly in his hand, glowing with a strange, silvery light. Tai Shin froze, unable to believe what he was seeing. "And no way," he muttered. His jaw dropping, Yi Chuan lifted the knife easily, turning it in his hand. The cold metal reflected his calm eyes. "It's a lot lighter than my dad's one," he said quietly. The blacksmith blinked. "Lighter?" His mouth hung open in shock. "Wait, what? Just like that?" The glowing knife shimmered in Yi Chuan's hand, reflecting the firelight. He stared at it quietly for a moment, the blade's cold edge faintly luminous under his gaze. Then he spoke, his voice calm and curious. "What's this knife called?" The blacksmith blinked, caught off guard. "It doesn't have a name yet," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "It belongs to you now. You should be the one to name it," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "It belongs to you now. You should be the one to name it." Yi Chuan looked at the knife again. Light danced across its edge like silver fire. He nodded slowly. "The Xia family really is rich," he said softly, a small smile touching his lips. "All right then," he raised the knife slightly. The fire reflected in his cold eyes. "I'll name this knife." A brief silence, then his lips curved into a faint smirk. Dragon Slayer froze. His mouth fell open. "What?" he shouted in shock, his voice echoing through the forge. "Dragon Slayer?" For a moment there was silence. Then he let out a groan. "That's too cliché," he said, sweat beading on his brow. The sun rose slowly over the city walls. A soft wind carried the scent of smoke and steel. Yi Chuan glanced down at the knife at his waist. Dragon Slayer. Its blade shimmered faintly in the morning light. He took a deep breath and smiled. "Now that I have my knife," he thought, "I should go out and hunt some monsters. Maybe earn a little money. But more importantly, if I can reach the first rank of the Dengtang realm, then I'll finally have a chance to deal with Liu Xing." He stepped out of the city gate. His footsteps echoed softly against the stone road. Behind him, two townsmen talked nervously. "Damn it, I don't know what's happening lately," one said, "but there are so many strange beasts appearing around the city. They're attacking people like crazy." "I know," the other replied. "I passed a plated ground ox today. It's usually harmless, but this time it chased me for 10 miles. He shuddered. It was terrifying. Yi Chuan walked past them silently, his eyes sharp and cold. He smirked. "This is perfect," he whispered. "There are plenty of monsters out there to kill now." The forest was silent. Only the rustling of dry leaves and the faint hum of spiritual energy filled the air. Yi Chuan stood still beneath the towering trees, his black shirt clinging lightly to his frame as the wind blew through his hair. His eyes slowly opened, cold, sharp, and calm. Note, the stronger the spiritual power, the clearer the perception. Then, a sudden vibration. The Dragon Slayer knife hanging at his waist began to tremble on its own. A faint purple glow ran along its blade, as if it were alive, responding to something unseen. Yi Chuan frowned slightly and looked down. The knife lifted itself from its sheath, hovering before him, humming softly in the air. His eyes widened a little, but his face remained calm. "You can move on your own," he murmured. The blade pulsed once, bright and sharp, then shot forward like a flash of light, cutting through the air toward the dense forest ahead. Moments later, Yi Chuan slowly turned his head. 3 figures stepped out of the shadows, tall, rough-looking men with cruel smiles on their faces. Their eyes locked on him. The one in the middle grinned, flipping a dagger between his fingers. "Not bad," he said. "You dodged my sneak attack just now. Must be your lucky day." One faint light glimmered in his eyes. 9th stage apprentice realm. He was strong, but not strong enough. The tallest man among the 3 stepped forward, his face cold and sharp under the moonlight. He smirked, his eyes filled with cruelty. "We've been watching you for days," he said. "Brother Liu Xing ordered us, the moment you step out of the city, we're to cut your tendons and drag you back." Just then, a blue digital screen flickered before his eyes. System notice, new weapon selected, Butcher Blade activated the app. Another message appeared. Liu's pit killed. With this blade grants plus 0.3 free attribute points. Yi Chuan's grip tightened around the blade. The purple glow shimmered across its edge as he lifted it, the air around him humming with faint energy. A small smile curved on his lips. "Let me show you something cool," he said calmly. "My new baby, the Dragon Slayer blade." The three men froze for a moment. "Wait," the curly-haired one stammered, pointing at the knife. "What did you just call that thing? Did you say Dragon Slayer blade?" Yi Chuan nodded lightly, eyes cold but calm. "Yeah, that's what I said." The men burst into laughter, clutching their stomachs as they doubled over, nearly falling to the ground. "Ha ha ha ha, you call that little knife a Dragon Slayer blade? You think you're some kind of dragon-slaying hero?" Still smiling, Yi Chuan spoke softly, his voice calm, yet sharp as a blade. "Actually," he said, raising the Dragon Slayer slightly, "I'm not a Dragon Slayer." Laughter echoed through the forest. The three men were still mocking him, wiping tears from their eyes, but Yi Chuan's expression had already changed. The air around him twisted, glowing red like molten fire. The shadows behind him began to writhe. He lifted his head slowly, his voice low, almost a whisper. Actually, his eyes burned crimson, like embers rising from the depths of hell. The blade in his hand pulsed with dark energy, black and red light swirling together, sparks scattering around his feet. He grinned, his face half hidden beneath the blood-red glow. "I'm a pig butcher." The words dropped like thunder. The laughter stopped for a second, then started again, this time forced and uneasy. "Haha, what the hell is this guy saying? He's hilarious." But their laughter didn't last. Before they could blink, Yi Chuan moved. A blinding silver arc flashed through the air. The heavy man's smile froze. He looked down in confusion. A thin, cold line traced across his neck. His hand rose slowly, trembling, trying to touch the wound. System notice. Use the butcher blade to slaughter a two-legged pig. EXP plus 5% bonus damage to pig kind plus 1%. In front of him, the other two men froze, staring at their fallen comrade. "He's dead," one of them stammered, his face pale. "What just happened? Did you see it clearly?" The other man shook his head, panic spreading across his face. No way, he didn't even move. Before they could think, Yi Chuan's shadow blurred. A sharp blue light cut through the darkness, slicing past them. One of the men screamed, ducking instinctively as the blade slashed through the trees behind him. "Hey!" he shouted, stumbling backward. The tallest man clenched his fists, trying to sound brave. "You bastard, that's not loyal at all," he yelled at his companion, who was already backing away. But it was too late. Yi Chuan stood right in front of him now, silent, expressionless, his glowing eyes fixed like a predator's. The man tried to speak, but no words came out. A clean silver line flashed through the air. His vision spun for a brief moment, then everything went red. Yi Chuan lowered his blade, the red light fading slightly. "Two pigs down," he muttered calmly. Use the butcher blade to slaughter a two-legged pig. EXP plus 5% bonus damage to pig kind plus 1% plus 0.3. Free attribute points. The system's cold voice faded, replaced by the trembling breath of the last man standing. He stared in horror at his fallen comrades, blood pooling around their lifeless bodies. His lips quivered. "It's impossible, absolutely impossible. I didn't even see him move." Sweat rolled down his face as his knees shook. This guy's strength, it's way beyond mine. His instinct screamed at him, "Run!" He turned and bolted into the trees, branches whipping against his face as he sprinted blindly. "He's a monster," he gasped. "Good thing I'm clever. No one's better at running than me." But behind him, Yi Chuan didn't chase. He simply lifted his glowing blade. The butcher blade pulsed once, and vanished in a flash of blue light. The man's body stiffened mid-run. A sharp sound sliced through the air, followed by a dull thud. His legs gave out, and he crashed face first into the dirt, eyes wide open. The butcher blade stood quivering in a nearby tree trunk, its edge gleaming with a faint red glow. Yi Chuan walked up slowly, his calm footsteps echoing in the silent forest. He pulled the blade free with a single motion, flicking off the blood as the system chimed again. Notice damage to pig kind plus 1%, plus 0.3 free attribute points. The faint blue light of the system window faded into the night air. Yi Chuan exhaled softly, his blade still dripping with blood. He looked down at the last body lying at his feet. "You were the ones who attacked first," he said flatly. As he sheathed his blade, something metallic glimmered near the corpse's waist. He crouched and pulled out a small scroll wrapped in gold-lined leather. The words skill scroll were engraved across its surface in bold letters. Yi Chuan blinked, a rare smile curling on his lips. "Whoa," he murmured. "A surprise bonus? Acquired beginner movement skill, Shadow Ghost Step. Upon activation, increases agility by 30% for 30 seconds. So that's how it feels," he muttered, stretching his fingers. The system window vanished, leaving behind a faint echo of power. He smirked. "Even if it's just a beginner skill scroll," he said to himself, "free stuff always feels good." Sound dull and heavy. His instincts flared. Something had fallen. No, landed. Yi Chuan's eyes darted toward the forest edge. From behind the trees, a massive shadow crawled forward. Long, matted fur, claws digging into the ground, and when it lifted its head, 2 rows of red eyes lit up like burning coals. The creature hissed, saliva dripping from its maw, and its growl rolled through the trees like thunder. The terrified corpse of the bandit beneath it twitched once, then fell still forever. Yi Chuan's pupils contracted. "A demon beast," he whispered. The monster's 6 eyes glowed brighter, locking onto him as it opened its blood-red jaws. A chilling roar shattered the night. Leaves burst into the air. The ground trembled beneath his feet. Yi Chuan's hand tightened around his blade. "So much for taking a break," he muttered coldly. The system chimed again. Rangyu enemy detected. Rank C. Nightfang Demon Wolf. Warning. Strength exceeds user's current rank. Yi Chuan's smirk returned. "Perfect," he said, eyes gleaming with excitement. "Let's test my new skill." He activated Shadow Ghost Step and vanished. A swirl of shadows exploded where he had stood, leaving only the faint afterimage of his smile. The air turned cold. Yi Chuan's eyes narrowed as the shadowy beasts crept out of the darkness, their red eyes glowing like embers. "What kind of weird creature is this?" he muttered, his voice low. On the ground, the bandits' corpses lay torn apart, their flesh shredded by the monster's claws. The beasts were still feeding, their growls echoing through the forest. Yi Chuan's grip tightened on his blade. "So it really dares to eat humans." His calm expression twisted into a dark smile. "I can't let it live. Want this cleaned further for pacing. Faster." He took a deep breath. Shadow Ghost Step. His body vanished in an instant. A streak of blue light tore through the forest, leaving behind only faint afterimages. 27. Yi Chuan's movements blurred, faster than the eye could follow. In one smooth motion, the butcher blade sliced through the nearest beast. Blood sprayed across the grass as the creature's roar turned into a wet gurgle. Another beast lunged at him from behind, but Yi Chuan was already gone. He reappeared above it, his blade glowing red with the system's power. "Too slow," he said quietly. Blinding arc of light cut through the monster, splitting it clean in half. Used Butcher Blade to slaughter a spiked pig. EXP plus 5% bonus damage to pig kind, plus 1%. Beast collapsed, twitching violently. Yi Chuan landed lightly, but his shirt was now full of sharp black spikes sticking out of his body. He winced. "Ah, that hurts." Looking down at himself, he chuckled softly. "Let's just call it acupuncture."